Welcome to Ultimate Master. Today, I'm going to show you one of my best attacks with London Opening. It's been 3 days since I learned London Opening and I have been exploring many ideas. Today, I'm going to show you my most accurate game with this opening, how I dominated my opponent with an amazing accuracy of 93 to 96%. The accuracy of my opponent in this game was about 77 to 80%. Before beginning this, let me tell you that I'm no expert at this. Whatever I'm telling you is just based on pure experience. So feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. Let's begin. So I started with d4 and my opponent played d5, then bishop to f4 and c6. It was after this move that I played knight to f3. Now there is a big reason why after c6 I played knight to f3. The answer is very simple. It's because of this bishop pin. I don't want to get pinned by the opponent bishop. So this is the reason why after e6 I responded with knight to f3. Now let me show you what happens if opponent decides to play, let's say, knight to f6. I will simply go e3. If the opponent decides to, move his bishop to f5, there are two options for me, either to go d3 or knight to d2. I like knight to d2 because not only it gives me the ability to control e4 square as well as giving room for my rook. Now my rook can freely move between these three squares, and if the queen decides to, attack me, let's say after c5, c3, then knight to c6, f3 and b6. See, my rook can freely move since knight on b1 has moved to d2. That's why I like playing d2. Knight to d2 is my favorite. I prefer it over bishop to d3. Although bishop to d3 is not a bad move, because in this situation both are equal no matter what you play. Let me show you a variation with bishop to d3. So it all started after f4, knight to f6, e3, bishop to f5, and I go d3. After bishop to d3, bishop takes d3, queen takes d3. And if we go for c5, c3, and let's say knight to c6, d2, the idea is the same. The situation is equal. You build your beautiful pyramid. There is a queen inside this pyramid, which is, replacing the bishop, as well as you are controlling e4 and e5 squares. Now don't get intimidated by the fact that the queen is attacking the pawn on b2, because the queen will definitely take the pawn after the last move, knight to d2. What you do here, just cancel. This is equal. Don't get intimidated like the queen is on b2. No, there's no problem. Even after, let's say, c takes d4, we have e takes d4, and there is an open file for rook. What more you ask? So I think it's a fairly equal position. There are no complications with it. So let's go back, since this is equal. Yes. So he responds with e6. I respond with knight to f3 and the knight to c6, which is an inaccurate move since he blocks the pawn, which was meant to be pushed to c5. So I thought maybe I have some chances. I played the logical move e3. He responds with f6, which is again an inaccurate move. Here I thought for a while, I thought that maybe he wants to push the pawn to g5. So I respond with h4. The idea is very simple. If, let's say, push the pawn, I will take the pawn, and this h file will be open for my rook. So I thought, why not? I think this is a very good move, which after analysis turned out to be inaccurate. I don't know why. So in the game, he played e5. This is inaccuracy, or you can call it also a mistake, because this gives me a free pawn. Let me show you how. I immediately grabs the pawn, d takes e5, f takes e5, knight takes e5, and after knight exchange, the bishop is comfortably sitting on e5, and the king is completely exposed. Of course, he wants to, shield his king, so he played e7. So after the move knight to e7, this is apparently an inaccurate move. I thought this is, logical because maybe he wants to, create room for his rook if somehow I go for this queen to h5 check. So this is an inaccurate move because it gives me a chance to attack his king. Let me show you how. So if I go queen to h5 check, g6, and then g5. The problem with this is it is hard to calculate. It is very hard for me to calculate, after this check in g6 and g5, and this becomes difficult, even after, let's say, he plays rook to g8. I have to play knight to c3, and then you have to play knight to c6, and after queen exchange, I'm in a better position. And I thought this may be, going to rook pawn endgame, and it could become very complicated. Since I'm not very highly rated, I couldn't see. So I go for my usual low ratings, way of attacking, bishop to e2. The idea is very simple. I'm going to give a check, move the pawn, and boom, I win the rook. So that exactly happens in the game. He played a move, knight to f5, which is again an inaccurate move, thinking of, grabbing my pawn on h4. I go for check, bishop to h5 check. He responds with g6. I took the rook. Now bishop takes h8 and bishop to g7. This is a very good move. Let me tell you why. Let's say take the bishop. Queen to h5 check. King has to move to e7. It can also go here. So e7. After this, there are a lot of difficulties for him. Let's say I go queen to h7 check, and it becomes very difficult for a low-rated player to defend this. So he thought a good idea, that is bishop to g7. Actually, this is not a bad move, let me tell you, taking a bishop, but it is difficult. So I took his bishop, bishop takes g7, knight takes the bishop at the g7, and I move to f3. Now the reason I think this is bad for black, let's go a couple moves back. Yes, so after I took his rook, when he had the opportunity to take my bishop, I think he made a great choice. Let's say he took my bishop, pawn takes bishop h5, queen attacks the king with h5 check, king moves to e7, and then there's again a check on h7. Let's say if he moves his bishop, it is difficult for him because he just gave a free piece. I took, and maybe he can generate some play, but I think it is very, very difficult for him at such a lower rating. So he made the right call of going bishop g7. I took the bishop, knight takes the bishop at g7, and bishop to f3, attacking this pawn. So after this, he responds with queen to f6. Then I respond with knight to c3. As this is a natural move for me, he played knight to f5. Now the reason he played this move, let me tell you, from black's perspective. The black is thinking, I will attack this pawn, and let's say I get a chance to attack it, then maybe I can eliminate this bishop. It looks dangerous. Also, if he moves his bishop, I will capture this pawn, and since I can give check to the king, and if king moves to any inaccurate squares and I get a lucky fork, maybe there is some counterplay for me. So that's what the black thought. Well, I respond with immediate attack. Since I have an opportunity for it, I capture the pawn on d5. Okay, the reason is because I am simply controlling this square. By the knight, by the bishop, I'm literally king of this square. Okay, so after this, he goes for simply, try to push my queen onto c6. And after this, I think it is almost over. Queen to g8 check, king to d7, then this castling check. This long castle check is my favorite. Whenever I get opportunity, I play it. This is so cool. He played king to c7, knight to e4. Now the reason I played knight to e4 is simple. You see this square. I want to give check with the queen, but this queen is protecting it. So what should I do? Not only I can attack this queen, deflecting it, also there is a mating threat. So I played knight to e4. He responds with queen to e5 and then immediately queen to d8 check. Now it's forced king to b8. Then I played knight to f6. The idea is simple. If he made any inaccurate move, it's a checkmate. It's a mating one, which he did. He blundered. He took my e3 pawn with the knight and boom, checkmate. So I won this game, and I hope you learned something from it. This is probably called, queen's pawn opening, trot variation, something like that. Now let me tell you, I think the demise of black was this move only. This knight to c6 is so bad because, this pawn cannot move. There's no counterplay for black. And also this move is very bad because you completely expose your king. White can literally destroy you. So this is bad. Now, thank you very much for watching my video. If you watched till here, please like, subscribe and comment, and I will make this kind of videos in future. And give your suggestion. They are very valuable for me.